Hello. Welcome. So great to see ya. It's so fun. I love seeing you here for AMXkids. I love it. I seriously do love it. And I forgot my camera phone stand. I think it's out in my car that's at the garage getting it oral changed. So I'm dealing without that. So that is why we have a little bit different angle today. But we are hopping into, I love this stuff. AMXkids 13, we're reading The Outsiders. So I know I've seen at least parts of this movie because I remember a playground scene where I think Ponyboy might get jumped, but I have not read the book. When I ask what books I should cover on the show, this and Where the Red Fern Grows are probably the top two. Red Fern Grows probably number one. This is number two. This is one that Dredd loves and has been recommending since day one. Actually, the early stages of AMXkids, when it was just an idea and it was an idea. We were actually talking about the idea. He said, books like The Outsiders. So that was his numero uno that he suggested or wanted me to read or thought was good for the show. So I'm getting to it. My babysitter is upstairs with Rocky, and she leaves at 11:30. So let's Rocky and roll. Hey, how about that? I like how I did that. So let's Rocky and roll. I'm really excited. I'm speaking on Friday. Yesterday I did spoke at a digital PR class at Penn State, and it was really stinking cool. And on Friday I'm speaking at a Spartan X Leadership, that's fun, event in Philly. And I'm going to a veteran civic engagement with veterans post their military careers on Friday. So it's a busy week, and we're freaking going to see Kevin Hart on Saturday. This is like the coolest week ever. I'm not going to lie to you. Most weeks are not fun. This week is fun. Okay. All right. 1, 2. Let's start AMXkids 13. 1, 2, 3. Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of AMXkids 13. Now, this is AMXkids. This is geared towards middle school aged students. How about that? I know when I was younger and people referred to me as a kid, I would think, I'm not a kid. I'm like 12, man. I know what I'm talking about. So if you're offended, my young friends, by me calling you kids, I sincerely apologize. But this is AMXkids to differentiate itself from AMX. AMX is for your parents. AMXkids is for you and your parents, to be honest. So this is AMXkids 13. We're starting the book, The Outsiders. Now, I want to throw this out there, somewhat of a disclaimer. If you're on the younger end of the middle school age, and actually if you're on the upper end of the middle school age, either way, to be honest, this book talks about serious subject matter. It's been a bit controversial. Some schools will talk about it. Some schools probably won't talk about it. It deals with real life stuff, and we're going to dive into this real life stuff, but I want to throw out there the recommendation that you talk to your parent, you talk to your coach, you talk to your teacher, you talk to your administrator before you get into this book. If it's a little bit fuzzy for you, because again, it does deal with some pretty serious content matter, but I do think it's a lot of the stuff that you're experiencing quite possibly on a day-to-day basis. And it's one of the most requested books I've had to do on the show is The Outsiders, along with Where the Red Fern Grows, which we will probably do next. All right, let's get started. So S.E. Hinton, the author of this book, S.E. Hinton, I want to give a little bit of background on the author before we start the book. S.E. Hinton wrote this book when she was 16 years old. She started when she was 15 years old. So that's AMXkids' age, right? We're in middle school, maybe approaching high school, maybe we're even in high school. She said she wrote this book, quote, and this is why I thought it was important to talk about this. This is why I think it's important for you, if you're listening to this in a conversation platform, if you and your teacher, your coach, your parent are going to talk about this. She wrote the book, quote, to deal with problems I had to face and write my way to some sort of understanding and coping. So she wrote the book to help deal with the problems that she was undergoing, to figure out a way of understanding and coping them. So think of the stresses, the struggles, the problems, the challenges that you have in your life, and understand that there are creative outlets for them and or conversational outlets for them. You know, just talking, just writing a story, making sense of some of the challenges in your life by way of writing a story, drawing a picture, writing a song. No matter, so many songs. How many of you out there like country? I love me some country. Country songs are telling stories. You know, most songs are telling stories, but country songs are infamous for talking about maybe like things that they're experiencing or challenging or even really good times. It's a creative outlet. So many of popular songs are dealing just that, coping and understanding, coping with these problems. So she wrote this quote, to have another life, to be someone else. Now, listen, reading and writing, they offer that outlet. To have another life. Maybe you're sitting there and you're thinking to myself, oh, it's so tough. You know, I have this problem, that problem. Understand, again, I want to bring this to the forefront. I've become more and more of a creative person post my teaching and fighting career. But reading and writing, they offer that outlet, right? For me, you want to know why I read so much and why I write? You know, I write, this is a lesson plan that I'm reading from, so I write every day. Because for me, it's adventure and wonder. You know, you can write, I remember when I was a kid, I don't know if they still have them nowadays, but they used to have these books called Write Your Own Adventure books. Or create your own adventure, write or read your own adventure, where you would actually get to the end of a chapter and then they would say, for this option, go to this page. For that option, go to that page. And you would literally write your own adventure. So that is the intent that S.E. Hinton used when she wrote this book, was to create this other life or to escape, to deal with. And I want to differentiate there the importance of not trying to escape them, rather dealing with them, coping them, understanding them through reading, through writing, through discussion. That's, if I were talking to my kids, that's what I recommend them do. Don't try to escape them. Try to understand, try to cope, try to learn from them. So the title of this book is called The Outsiders. The Outsider. When I say outsider, the outsiders, you don't need to say it out loud if you're in a classroom setting. But what do you think of? Outsider. Who do you think of? Is there a person? Is there a student? Is there someone in the neighborhood that you might consider an outsider? You know, why do you consider them an outsider? How might that person feel as an outsider? So listen here. Listen to this take on it. All of us, one way or another, are outsiders. Have you ever thought of yourself as an outsider? Maybe you have. Maybe you haven't. But think about this and see if you might agree with me. And if you don't agree with me, again, talk to your teacher, talk to your parent, and tell them why you disagree with me and talk it out. So I'm saying that all of us in one way or another are outsiders. And I'm going to show you how, and I'm going to tell you why. The standard outcast or outsider that you probably thought of in your head. That person is an outsider because they're alone. They're an outcast. They don't have friends. They don't have anyone to talk to. How about the really, really, really smart kids? Do you think of them as outsiders? Do you think of them as outcasts? How about this? They're an outsider in that they have extra academic pressure that most people don't have. They're dealing with these intense pressures, these intense levels of academic success that they strive for. Like the valedictorian. Guess what? The valedictorian of your class is an outsider. Because guess how many valedictorians there are? One. That makes that person an outsider. Athletes. Think of the star athlete, the star quarterback. Everyone uses the star quarterback. It's a cliche. I just did it too. I just did it myself. Think of the star quarterback. Is that person an outsider? You betcha. How or why is that person an outsider? Because winning the game, right? Or the all-star wrestler or the all-star basketball guy or girl. All of that pressure is on their shoulders. Or even take it as a team. That team is a group of outsiders because all of the pressure, maybe the town is depending on that person or that team to win the thing. That sets them apart. That makes them an outsider. Let's look at physically or mentally disabled people. They're outsiders. They're different. Think of people from another country or those who speak another language. They're outsiders. How or why are they outsiders? Because they're different from the rest of us. That makes them an outsider. So what I want to do is give you some perspective. You know, a perspective is a different way of thinking about something. I'm going to use a big fancy word here. It's a vantage point. So I'll give you an example. I'm 37. I have 2 kids. I'm a former Spanish teacher, wrestler, professional fighter. So the way I think, my perspective comes from that. Okay? Maybe you were born in the South. Maybe you play football. Maybe your parents are actors. You know, whatever. That helps. That kind of shapes the way you think. So perspective is giving you a different perspective, means simply adding to the way that you think and making you more empathetic. That's another vocab word here, empathetic. If you're listening to this in a classroom setting, hit pause, discuss what you think empathetic was. I'm going to tell you what it means right now. Empathetic means being aware of other people's emotions and feelings. It means conveying a sense of understanding of where they're coming from. If you're an empathetic person, you can understand why people feel a certain way. It's almost like you get down on the ground or get down on the floor figuratively, and you're shoulder to shoulder with that person, right? You understand it. I truly understand where you come from. It's not being sympathetic. It's not, I mean, in its entirety, it's not simply saying, oh, I feel so bad for you. No, it's really being empathetic, like really feeling what that person is feeling and understanding why they're feeling that way. So those are kind of 2 ideas or 2 new vocab words, perspective and empathy, that I'm hoping to bring across here by showing you how in one way or another, we're all outsiders. So the main character of the book here is Pony Boy. And this is a popular book, The Outsiders. A lot of people read it. I did a talk yesterday at Penn State University. Many of the students in that class read the book, The Outsiders, when they were younger. I never have read this book. It's my first time, so I'm very excited about it. I have seen portions of the movie. I do know that, but I have not read it. So I'm learning this as I'm teaching it. Actually, I learned it yesterday, and I'm teaching it today. So Pony Boy is the main character. And in this book, to give you a little bit of the premise, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you read it. Read all these books. They're full of life lessons, right? I'm bringing you a brief portion of what these books have to offer. But in the book, The Outsiders, there are 2 social classes, right? So our main character's name is Pony Boy. He's the main character. He is a greaser. He's a greaser. And the other group, the other social class that they battle with, are called the Socias. Now, I didn't even know how to pronounce that word. I had to just text dread, and then I had to Google, how do you pronounce S-O-C-S? Because that's how it's written in the book. And in your head, you want to say socks. And actually, Pony Boy in the book says, I don't even really know how to pronounce it, but I'm going to use Socias. So Pony Boy, our main character, sticks out from his gang, right? So he's an outsider. Even within his group, maybe you have a group of friends. Maybe you're on a team. Maybe you're in a classroom. Maybe you're in elementary school and you're with the same class. Maybe you stick out from your group. I know, trust me, I stick out in a lot of ways. I call myself a dork. I call myself a nerd. And that is the truth. I stick out. I'm obsessive. I do a lot of things that most people say are weird. What's wrong with Charlie? I have to give you a little side story here to show you how I'm an outsider. I speak Spanish, right? Yo hablo español. Era un profesor de español. I was a Spanish teacher. And when I would watch movies, okay, in my daily life, I'd watch movies. I would, you know, if they said, we're going to the store to get something, in my mind, but actually out loud, I would translate that into Spanish, para practicar, to practice. So they would say in the movie, I would say it in my head. I thought it was in my head, but it was actually coming out of my mouth, and people could hear it. My sister-in-law had to ask my wife, what's Charlie doing? Is he okay? So that is an example of how I stick out or how I was an outsider, but it was only because I really, really loved the Spanish language and I really, really wanted to learn it. Anyway, back to Pony Boy and him being different from his gang. So he went to the movies alone. You know, the book opens up and he talks about how he likes to go to the movies and he likes to go to the movies alone. I used to go to the movies by myself all the time. When I lived in New Jersey and I was a professional fighter, All my friends in New Jersey were working, so I would go to the movies by myself. That's a humbling experience, but I recommend when you're of age, when you're old enough, or when you feel comfortable, you talk to your parents, feel comfortable enough, go to the movies by yourself. Go to the movies, sit in a row where it's just you, so that people can know that person's here by themselves. And then what that's going to do is that's going to make you more comfortable with sticking out. That's going to make you more comfortable with being an outsider. It's the same thing about eating in a cafeteria. You know, where maybe you're at camp for the summer and you don't know anyone, you don't have any friends with whom you can sit. Just practice. In your mind, you can even be saying, this is so uncomfortable, this is so uncomfortable, this is so uncomfortable, this is so uncomfortable. But just sit down and eat your meal. Trust me, it's not easy, but it's really good practice. It'll help build resilience. It'll help build toughness in getting you more and more comfortable with being yourself and at times being an outsider. So Ponyboy says, and this is how he sticks out from even his crowd, he said, nobody in our gang digs movies and books the way I do. He feels isolated. So Ponyboy feels isolated. He feels alone. And again, touching on what I talked about earlier in the fact that all of us are outsiders one way or another, the best of the best. Think of the most successful actor, the most successful singer, the most successful athlete, the most successful business person. Think of The Rock. That's who I think of when I'm talking. Even the best of the best, the most popular, the best athletes, the movie stars, the model, lots of them feel isolated because they're different. They feel isolated because they're different. They have to be different to get to the level that they're at. To be The Rock, you've got to be different. You've got to be have extreme discipline. You've got to sacrifice a lot. And guess what? Whenever you sacrifice, that can mean going to parties. That can mean going to the dance. That can mean spending time on your phone. That can mean watching less Netflix. That's what sacrifice means. So the people who get to the top, oftentimes, they feel isolated because of the sacrifice and the choices that they've made. Why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this to let you know, one, if you do feel like an outsider, you are not alone. And two, it's just part of the process. And by doing things like going to the movies by yourself, by doing things like sitting down at a restaurant or a cafeteria by yourself, it helps you build this comfortability. I talk a lot about uncomfortability. So uncomfortability is just that, things that make you uncomfortable, right? Running up a mountain or doing 1,000 push-ups or getting in a UFC fight. Those things are uncomfortable. And doing those uncomfortable things will help you feel more comfortable with who you are and in your daily life. Moving on to the next thing. This is kind of maybe a fun little question, conversation point that I want to point out here. So Soda Pop is Ponyboy's brother. They're super close. Ponyboy loves them. So Ponyboy said this in reference to his brother Soda Pop. Soda never touches a drop of alcohol. He doesn't need to. He gets drunk on just plain living, and he understands everybody. He gets drunk on just plain living. Now, again, I mentioned this book does deal with drugs and alcohol. It does deal with violence. So again, please talk to your parents about it. Talk to your teachers. If this book isn't right for you, boom, hit stop. If it is right for you, I want you to answer that question. He never touches a drop. He doesn't need to. He gets drunk on just plain living, and he understands everybody. What does that mean to you? Maybe this is our takeoff point. Maybe this is our discussion point of the episode. What does he gets drunk on living mean? I'm going to give you some of my thoughts. Hit pause or stop if you don't want me to ruin it for you. He gets drunk on just plain living. Have you ever seen someone who just has enthusiasm and energy? Who's a pleasure to be around, who makes you laugh, smile, feel good? You might say that person gets drunk on plain living. That person just enjoys being alive. That person just enjoys interacting with other people. To say that Soda Pop understands everybody. Can you think of a word? Can you think of a word from earlier in this episode? Hit rewind, go back to the beginning. Can you think of a word that I used that means actually that right there? That he understands everybody. It's not sympathetic, but remember earlier when I was talking about, being in the trenches, being on the ground, really understanding how the person feels and why they feel that way. You're not sympathetic, you're empathetic. And I'm going to send you off with an action point. I say this to my daughter often. My daughter is 5 years old. And whenever she goes to school, I say to her, hey, Gracie, if you see a boy or a girl who might be standing in the corner or might be different than you or might not have any friends, here's what I want you to do. And I tell her, this would make your daddy really proud and really happy. I want you to go up to that person, that outsider, right? That's the theme of the book, The Outsiders. I want you to go up to that person and say, hi, my name's Gracie. What's your name? Do you want to play? That's it. Whatever age group you're in, you can modify or you can change that. But what we're trying to do here is we're trying to create conversation. We're trying to create an empathetic environment where you can understand, hey, that person's an outsider. That person might not be feeling really good right now. How can I help that person? I can go up to them. I can introduce myself to them. Hi, I'm Charlie. What's your name? Oh, hey, cool. Want to go over here and shoot basketball? Sure. Want to go over here and check out some books? Sure. Whatever it is, however it adapts to your particular situation, give that a try. Make that your homework assignment. Find someone who might need that extra amount of kindness or friendship or boost and give it to them by a simple introduction. This has been AMXkids 13, The Outsiders book. I love doing this stuff. So if you're a kid listening, know that I sincerely appreciate you tuning in. If you're a parent or a teacher, administrator, coach tuning in, I equally appreciate it. This is my favorite stuff to do, is to read books and teach the life lessons therein. This is valuable stuff. By way of these books, we're teaching young people how to get through, how to cope, going back to the author, how to understand and cope with the challenges in their life. So know that I am extremely grateful and forever indebted to you for tuning in. If you'd like to connect on social media, youngsters and oldsters, connect with me at Charlie Spaniard. If you'd like to check out my speaking programs or opt into my email list, hop on over to charliespaniard.com and be sure to subscribe to the Spaniard Show on iTunes or whatever podcast app you're using. Just search the Spaniard and it'll come up. I'll see you next week, folks. And you know what the send-off is? Read a book. See ya. I tell you what, I don't know if you guys like this, but I freaking love it. Abso-stinking-lutely love it. Okay, that's it, my friend. Chad, I am, my friend. It's freaking doing the work, buddy. Just stinking doing the work. Yeah, so I'll be back. This episode will be released at 4 p.m. today on my podcast. Hello, Brian. And new AMXkids come out on Tuesdays. Again, reading the book, The Outsiders. We'll see you all tomorrow morning for AM Excellence. See you.